What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? You know who it is, it's your boy Zuby, and I would like to welcome you back to my channel, or perhaps you are listening to this on the podcast. Today I want to talk about something really heavy and really deep and really challenging. I want to talk about evil, and I want to talk about violence within our society. As I make this video, in the past 72 hours, there have been two major shootings that have happened in the USA. There's been a rise in the case of stabbings happening in London and other parts of the UK. There's a lot of violence that happens every single day, all over the world, has always happened historically, and right now people are very fired up around this issue, particularly following these incidents that have happened in the US. You're seeing big debates happening regarding gun control or a certain type of guns and laws. People are politicizing the thing very, very heavily. People are trying to find out what the ideology of the shooters was, who they voted for, what team they support. And you've got other people who are looking a little bit deeper, who are asking about mental health issues, asking about some issues in society. But what I want to do in this video is really think about, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to think out loud, okay? Because I don't have all the answers to everything. But there are a bunch of things that I've been thinking about over the past few weeks, months, and even years when it comes to evil and violence in society. And I want to talk about a few ideas that I doubt everybody would have considered. Okay? I want to talk about some things that some of them might seem a little bit out there. Some of them you may not immediately see how the dots are connected, but these are a bunch of things that I do believe are connected. And yeah, I'm just going to put my thoughts out there. I'm going to try to be as honest as possible. It's most likely that no matter what you believe, you are going to be offended by something in this video. But I don't want you to necessarily be offended. The goal is not to offend, but to make people really think about these and challenge some of the things they have going on there in their brain. So I'm just gonna get into it, right? I'm not gonna sugarcoat things, because this is something that's serious, it's something that's deep, and it's something that I would like you to also share your insights on, and have a think about what I'm about to tell you. So the first few things to get out of the way are, firstly, anyone who commits these acts of evil is the person who needs to be blamed for it, okay? I don't want this video or what I'm saying to come across as me putting the blame on anybody else besides the shooters, the stabbers, the attackers, the people who are attacking innocent people, taking innocent people's lives. The fault is not with any politician. The fault is not with any religion. You can't blame an entire religion, any group of people. The issue is with the person who chose to commit this atrocity, whether you're talking about a single stabbing or you're talking about a mass shooting, okay? So don't blame Trump, don't blame the Democrats, don't blame the right, the left. It's stupid, okay? It's just infighting, it's dumb, stop it. Like, you can do it if you want, but this is not the core of the issue I want to talk about here. So I'm going to touch on a few things in society. I want to firstly say that it's important that we all recognize that evil exists. Evil is a real thing. It's a part of human beings. It's a part of human nature. It's a part of society. It's a part of each and every one of us in society. We all have the capability to be good, and we all also have the capability to be evil. Anybody who is honest with themselves, any adult who is honest with themselves, even any child who is beyond a certain age, knows that they are capable of good and bad. We have all done things in our past, whether that's lying or fighting or hurting another person or, breaking a law. There are plenty of things that we all do and we all have done that could be defined and described as evil. Anyone who doesn't believe that either hasn't really done the work in their head, or I don't think they're being honest. So it's important to recognize that the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. That's a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn from the Gulag Archipelago. And it's a very important quote, because it means that you don't just have good guys and bad guys, okay? All of us are a combination of the two. So it's not so simple that you can just take all of the bad guys, take all of the evil people, ship them off away or lock them up, and you're only left with the good people. Fortunately, in modern Western society, for certain, the vast majority of people express their good a lot more than they express their evil. But I'm going to also challenge that perception a little bit later on in this video, but let me not lose my train of thought. So following on from this idea that we've all got the capacity for evil and that we all have evil within us, we all also have the capacity for violence. Okay? Everybody, again, who is being honest knows that they are capable of violence. Have you ever been in a fight? Have you ever defended someone? Have you ever defended yourself? Have you ever punched someone? Have you ever hit someone? Have you ever thrown something at someone? Have you even just been aggressive in a violent sport, whether that's rugby or American football or boxing or MMA? Have you ever been violent at any point in your life? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever considered it? Of course you have. We all have. We all have the capacity for violence, and that's part of human beings. That's not something that's inherently bad. That's not something that's inherently bad. Sometimes violence can be necessary, okay? If you are a hunter and you need to kill an animal to eat for food, this goes beyond humanity, then you need the capacity for violence to kill, to take another life, and to take another life in the aid of your own survival. And so we all know we're capable of violence. If you don't think you are, think of what you'd do. I don't know. Are you a parent? Have you got children? What would you do if someone physically attacked or wanted to harm your children? Would you not get violent to protect them? What if someone was trying to take your own life? Would you just be a pacifist and lie down and let them take your life? No, you'll be violent back towards them. So violence is not inherently evil. It's necessary for our survival. And I believe that everybody should, in fact, be capable of violence. Everybody should have the capacity to defend themselves and their loved ones. So following on from that, I want to make some challenges to Western society, and I want to make some challenges to everybody's belief system. Whoever's watching this, whether you consider yourself a liberal, a conservative, left, right, up, down, XYZ, whatever country you're in, I want you to really think about what I'm about to tell you, because this might drop like a little bit of a bomb, but we live in a society and a culture, and we always have to some degree, that worships, glorifies, and promotes and accepts heinous violence. Okay? Now, you may hear me say that, and you might be thinking, what are you talking about? We live in the least violent time ever. We live in wonderful times. People treat each other nicely. And on a surface level, that's true. That's true. However, we have huge blind spots in our society. Huge, like crazy huge blind spots. What are some of these blind spots? Okay. So when I say that we don't have a culture of life, and we may even have a culture of death in some regards, that sounds really, really heavy. That sounds like, yo, Zuby, what are you talking about? What do you mean that we have a culture of death? This is the modern world. This is we're progressive, we're liberal, we're open, we're kind. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of blind spots in a lot of people's different belief systems. I'm gonna start with one of the elephants in the room, and anybody who knows my views well knows that I am very opposed to abortion. Okay, I am pro-life. If you look at the statistics, 75% of the British population supports abortion. Abortions take 190,000 lives of innocent unborn children every year in the UK, 1 million lives in the US. Since the 1970s, over 50 million Americans have been aborted. In the UK, I believe the number is around 8.5 million. 8.5 million of our own innocent children have been killed. I'm not going to use euphemisms, because we know that if you're being honest, of course, what is inside a mother during pregnancy is a human life. That's her child. And we live in a society which condones, promotes. You've got people who, no, I don't want to say worship, right? That's going too far, but you have people who think that abortion is a good, great thing, right? It comes under the guise of women's rights or healthcare and a whole bunch of other euphemisms. You've got some people who will try to distract from the fact of what's actually happening to say that, oh, simply a woman is just exercising her rights, or she's controlling her body, or she's taking responsibility, or she is exercising her right to bodily autonomy. There are a whole bunch of different euphemisms, but what is happening is that a human life is being terminated in every single abortion. And people turn a blind eye to this. So like I just said, 50 million babies or potential babies in America killed, innocent, within the last 50 years. In the UK, 8.8 million. So how can you tell me that we don't live in a society that is a culture of death when that is what we are doing to our own unborn children? Right? Can someone answer that for me? Be honest. Be honest too, right? I'm not even making this is not a video to make a strong pro-life argument, but this is a video just to consider the wider aspects of our society, our culture, our laws, and our beliefs, and some of the cognitive dissonance that goes on here, right? 20 people get killed in a mass shooting. Of course that is awful. Of course that is awful. I'm pro-life across the board. To me, I am truly all lives matter, okay? I do believe all lives matter, born or unborn, big or small, white, black, brown, gay, straight, I don't care, okay? I care about human lives, and I am a defender of human lives, okay? So there's that. So I want you to consider that. Think of those numbers. Think about how you would feel if those human beings, those lives were being taken at any other stage or by any other method, or perhaps if you had some visibility of it, right? It's all very let's just put this under the carpet, sweep it under the rug. Don't talk about this, or if you talk about it, use these euphemisms. But no, like we need to talk about this stuff honestly, because I think all of these things are linked together. Now, if you're somebody who is already pro-life, okay, I want you to think about, I'm going to give you a challenge too. I want you to think about how pro-life you are across the board, okay? So you are pro-life, but what are your thoughts on foreign wars? What are your thoughts on dropping bombs on civilians? What are your thoughts on some of the drone strikes that governments do, which primarily target and kill innocent human beings? What are your thoughts on people who are just poor and sick and need help, or who are struggling with various issues? Are you pro-life across the board? Are you only pro-life for people who live in your country, or people who look like you, or people who are within your own geographical borders? How much do you think and care about other people in other parts of the world? Again, I just want you to ask yourself some questions. I'm not trying to be the moral arbiter here. I'm not God, but I just want you to think about that, because you have people who are pro-life who seem to think it's okay to let, I don't know, a refugee boat break down and all the people in it just drown in the water because they're trying to reach another land. Or even if they're not refugees, even if they're illegal migrants, okay? Even if they are not supposed to be doing that, is the right thing to just leave them to drown? Is that pro-life? Is that correct? Is that good? Is that evil? I mean, what do you think? What do you think? If you're someone who's pro-choice for whatever reason, and of course, all of us, everybody feels bad about these atrocities that happen. Nobody here supports murder. I'm not trying to say that you are supporting murder, but I do want you to think long and hard about what you are supporting. Like really, really think about what it means in terms of human lives. Following on from this, and we live in a time where there's a lot of moral subjectivity, okay? So as religion becomes something that becomes challenged a lot more in the Western world, we're sort of moving away from the Christian roots of our society. People are making up their own morality, whether it comes to sex, whether it comes to violence, whether it comes to telling lies, whether it comes to the family, marriage, how we treat children, how we treat the elderly. The Christian religion has a lot of guidelines on these things, and it has those guidelines generally for a reason, because I don't think we can trust human beings. I mean, we're seeing that we cannot totally trust human beings to even know what is best for themselves on an individual level, let alone the wider society. So in my personal view, it is good to have some immutable guidelines. That's a lot of what I think the value of religion and faith in God does. Another thing that it does do, though, is it does provide people with a purpose and a peace and a reason and an understanding for being, for living, for treating other fellow human beings in the image of God and not wanting to harm them as a result of that. Now, of course, you're going to have an atheist jump in here and say, oh, wait, hang on, Zuby. Of course, religion has its downsides. A lot of these mass murders, a lot of these atrocities are committed by religious people, extremists. And that's absolutely true, right? That purpose can go completely wrong, right? Somebody may say, oh, I beheaded this person, or I blew up this bomb in this place because God told me to do it, or because I thought that this would be my way to get to heaven, or all sorts of other extreme positions and bastardizations, really, of various religions. I mean, the truth is that I kind of view human beings are, and our brains and our hearts, that's kind of the hardware, and ideology or religion or ideas are kind of the software that can run on top of it. So if the hardware is really faulty to begin with, it's like no matter what program you run on there, it could be a religious one, it could be an irreligious one, it could be a political ideology, it doesn't matter. Like if this system's already broken, then that person can use that thing to justify whatever it is. It doesn't mean that it's always the ideology that can be the problem. There are, of course, problematic ideologies, and I use that term in the proper sense. But coming back to what I'm saying, we live in this climate where there's a lot of moral subjectivity. The definitions of right and wrong are becoming very, a huge gray area. As we talked about earlier, some people are pro-life, some people are pro-choice. Some people think abortion is fine, some people think no, it's not fine. And that in itself shows that it's a very tricky moral thing. I mean, if you go back to the days when things like slavery were popular, right? Slavery went on for thousands of years. To anyone, any Western modern person knows that slavery is immoral, right? It's clear, it's obvious. You don't really need to explain it. If you say I'm against slavery, nobody's going to push back on you. Nobody's going to challenge you. Whereas if you say I'm against abortion, you're going to get, man, that's a minority position. That's a minority position, okay? People are going to be pushing back on you, saying, hey, you're trying to take away women's rights, or you're trying to force people to give birth, or you're trying to punish these people, or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not the thing. And I don't want to necessarily equate these two ideas of like abortion and of slavery, but I'm just talking about moral subjectivity, okay? The way morality changes over the time, the way each individual and then societies have a whole have their own morality, which can be in flux. And if you don't have anything that's immutable and that doesn't change, sort of like a religious belief to fall back on, then it all just kind of gets tossed up in the air. It all gets tossed up in the air, and everybody's trying to do their own thing and weigh it up their own way. And this goes for some of these people who do these awful acts, right? To a lot of them, what they're doing is morally justified. You have to understand that. It's easy to just say, yeah, of course that's evil, and you're right, and of course that is evil, right? I think it's always wrong to take an innocent human life. But in some of these people's twisted ideologies and in this society and culture that they've grown up in and what they've learned and what they've been surrounded by, they have obviously reached a position where they think that what they're doing is okay. So I think it's important to, whilst we put all the blame on the person who's responsible for the act, I think it is important to look at the wider society, right? How are people growing up? What are the... It's hard to explain. It's almost like an existential crisis, right? It's like a social crisis. It's not just individuals, because societies are composed of individuals, but we all affect each other, and what we believe all affects each other, and what we consume affects each other, primarily ourselves, but I do believe there are ripple effects on other people. Now, the people who do these acts, it's very obvious that they don't value human life, and I've already touched on something which does not value human life, right? We're living in a society that doesn't value human life, guys. We don't value human life. I mean, and this to me is why, on a moral level, I'm I keep coming back to it. I'm really disturbed by abortion and the people who promote it and the people who push it and all of the movements towards liberalizing it even further and extending the terms even further. I mean, it just strikes me the blatant hypocrisy of being pro-death in some regard, right? And just being so flippant about it for so many people. And then to start questioning why some of these acts, the acts happen because we do not consistently value human life across the board. People say they do, people genuinely do believe that they do, but the facts speak for themselves. We do not value human life in the way that we should. And for as long as we do not value human life as a wider society, as a country, as a nation, then you're going to keep on producing people who do not value human life. Some of them will be mass shooters. Some of them will be bombers. Some of them will be stabbing people. Some of them will be attacking people in other ways. But a sick society is going to produce sick people. Now, the majority of people who get involved in these violent acts tend to be young men. Typically, men between the ages of, let's say, 16 and 25. That seems to be the sort of core area where these mass shooters, and even if you're talking about terrorists and people like that, that's generally the age range in which they spring up. It's not a lot of women doing this, very, very few women, and it's not a lot of old men. It's typically young men. Now, why is that? So I've got a little idea in my brain, which is that men are always building or destroying. If a man is not building, he is destroying. Now, due to a whole bunch of reasons, we currently live again in a society in the West where a lot of men feel disenfranchised. A lot of men have lost their purpose. They feel a sense of purposelessness, okay? And they don't really know what they're meant to be doing as a man. They don't know how to express their masculinity in a healthy way. They don't know how to attract women. They don't know how to have healthy relationships. Maybe they're part of a broken family. Maybe their parents got divorced. Maybe they've gone through really awful stuff with women. Maybe, there are a whole bunch of different factors that can play into it all. And this is why I'm talking about the wider societal and cultural aspects when it comes to these things, because again, the shooter, the attacker is always the person responsible, but we as a society, going up one level of abstraction, we do also have things that we can all be doing and thinking about and acting on individually, which will hopefully create a society that no longer produces broken people. Or if it does, then it'll be very much minimized. So it's crucially important for men to have a sense of purpose. It's important for men to be building something, whether that is physically building something with their hands, whether that's something mental and creative, whether that's building a business, building a marriage, building a family. All of this stuff is extremely important. We live in this weird place where the society, where the familial links have just broken down. People aren't looking after their children. Men are abandoning their children. Women are abandoning their children. People are abusing their own children. It's just kind of nuts. It's sad. It's like we've progressed in so many ways, so many ways. But you look at other aspects of Western society and you're just like, man, that was a huge shift backwards. The percentage of children who are growing up without a father in the home, the number of children who are growing up in, divorced households. And again, I'm not trying to target anybody specific. If one of these things I'm saying kind of hits you, it's not because I'm targeting you or anybody around you. I'm just keeping it 100 here, man. If society is founded on families, right? That's where it begins. It's not the government, it's families, it's parents, it's children. And if children are not being raised properly, if boys are not being raised properly, they're going to go on to develop a bunch of potential pathologies. And we're not going to like the way that some of those things play out, okay? So for the people who want to demonize men or demonize marriage or demonize the traditional family unit, you're part of the problem. You are part of the problem, because these are the things that lead to a healthy society. These are things that create healthy young men and young women. And what is it? I mean, just have a think of what society is promoting right now. Look at Hollywood, look at modern music, look at modern entertainment, look at all these things. Like, I'm not saying that entertainment is the reason for a mass shooting, right? That's silly. When these things happen and someone is saying, what video game were they playing? What music they were listening to? That is silly. But on a much deeper level, it does have a point, okay? Because why do we love gratuitous violence in movies, in video games, in films? What's the attraction to it, right? Especially if it's senseless violence. I mean, even the nature of violence in entertainment has changed over the years. So if there's always been violence, okay? Going back however long in entertainment, violence has always been a thing. However, there was normally a moral aspect to the violence, right? It was a good guy attacking the bad guys. The bad guys are trying to kill the good guys are trying to kill the bad guys. There was some morality in it. Now we're living in a time where you've got sort of this whole torture porn genre, where you've just got really gratuitous violence and it's senseless, right? It's senseless. It's in the music, it's in the movies, it's in TV shows, it's in all aspects of media. Of course, it's in video games. And yeah, I think we just need to ask ourselves some honest questions and think, man, why are we creating this? And why are we consuming this? Like, what's the purpose of this? Is there a reason for the violence? Is there a storyline here? Does it make sense in the context? Is it justifiable? Or is it just gratuitous and wanton violence for the sake of violence? Again, I don't have all the answers. I'm just putting a couple of thoughts out there, things I've been thinking about, and I'd be interested in hearing your own opinion on as well. Like I said in this, as I'm doing this talk, I don't want to be touching on the more obvious pinpoints. So I'm actually trying to avoid the more obvious ones. And that's why I'm not talking about how many bullets a certain type of gun can hold, or what its range is, or how quickly its rate of fire. I'm not talking about, I'm not necessarily talking about the direct mental health problems and whatnot. I feel like those have been talked about to death. They are important and happy to have that discussion, but I want to put in your mind some ideas just on a much higher level of why I think what's going on is going on. Yeah, so there we go. So I whatever side you're on here in some of these arguments and these conversations, I want you to just have a think about some of the things that I've been saying. Have a think about the type of society and culture which we are creating, and the type of society and culture which we want to create, where human life is valued, where people do care about the way they're treating each other. When we do talk to each other kindly, we do treat each other with kindness and politeness, and we go out of our way not to hurt each other, not go out of our way to hurt each other. I don't want to make this go on forever. I think I've touched on the key points that I wanted to. There are a whole bunch of other factors, of course. I haven't talked about the internet. I haven't talked about social media. I haven't gone into depth on mental health. I haven't gone into depth on policing and counterterrorism and other things like that, because I'm going to leave that to other people, and I feel like those conversations are already taking place. If you want my 2 cents, I'll be happy to give them. So yeah, I'm Zuby. I hope you have enjoyed this video or podcast, whatever way you've consumed it. And yeah, let me know what you think. Maybe I'm being crazy. Maybe these things are completely unconnected, but turns out when I think with that noggin, normally some of the things I say are on point. But let me know your thoughts anyway, and leave them in the comments below. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.